bear to look. He was still in the capital, so he couldn't use his own methods to teach this slut a lesson. He won't be able to stand it once he leaves the capital. Miss Kitty, why didn't you go with Lord Kurdour? He specifically sent someone to invite you. Perseus asked. We can't fight, and going with him would be a waste of time. I might as well go with you. Isn't following me a waste of time? Perseus smiled. Katie looked at him with an unusual gaze she'd never seen before. No. Perseus felt a chill run down his spine, though he didn't know why. Then he looked at Winnie, who was actually looking at him with a smug look in her eyes. That's utterly nonsensical. Perseus fell silent, beginning to think about what would happen next. Once he leaves the capital, he will buy the carriage and its horses. Traveling home by horse-drawn carriage would take at least 3 days and 3 nights, and it would be inconvenient to have another man with you during that time. There are some things he doesn't want other men to see. Money is not a problem for him now. The problem is who among them knows how to drive a horse-drawn carriage. Miss Katie, can you drive? Perseus asked. Won't. Wine-Eye's teacher. No. You're smug about not knowing? Perseus could only look at Ivisa in the end. No, Ivisa said calmly. But controlling horses with magic is not a problem. That's great, Perseus smiled. Can we stop for a moment? She asked. When he got excited again, Ivisa, what do you want to eat? I'll go buy it for you. I'll buy as much as you want. Ivisa completely ignored her. Perseus understood what Ivisa meant. The carriage finally stopped at the entrance to the capital. This is an open area without city walls or gates, but the street ends here. Looking ahead, there's an endless wilderness. Looking behind, there's a city layer upon layer, a complex and diverse landscape. Here, a dozen long poles were erected, and on each pole hung a dried human head. Ivisa got off the carriage expressionlessly and stood under the poles. Perseus stood beside her, watching the heads with her. A wind from afar blew by, chilling him to the bone. He turned to look at Ivisa. Ivisa's gaze swept over the heads of those people, as if she were trying to identify which of her relatives each of those withered and distorted faces belonged to. Finally, my gaze settled on the pole in the very middle. The head belonged to a middle-aged man and had obviously undergone special treatment. Even after several months, it looked as fresh as if it had just been chopped off, so Ivia recognized him effortlessly, leaving no room for self-deception. So she remained expressionless, but her face was visibly pale, and her body swayed slightly, as if she were about to collapse. Perseus quickly grasped her hand, but she held it tightly in return. That man seemed to be the type who rarely smiled, and even now, his brows still carried an awe-inspiring majesty. Perseus had only seen him a few times from afar and never had the chance to speak with him. His understanding of him was limited to what others said about him, and Ivisa had never mentioned him during this time. Therefore, he only knew what kind of man he was, but he didn't know what kind of father he was. Judging from Ivisa's current demeanor, even though he is stern and imposing, he must have a gentle side when it comes to his family. Otherwise, why would his daughter be so sad now? Stop looking. Let's go, Perseus said softly. Is that him? Ivisa asked. She gazed at that face that seemed as if it were still alive, her tone indifferent. Yes. Although he was reluctant, Perseus had no choice but to tell the truth. No, it's not, Ivisa said expressionlessly. Perseus looked at her with concern. The real him is gone forever and will never come back. This is just a meaningless piece of bone and flesh. So this is not him, this is not my father, and I should not feel sad for him. She spoke calmly, but her grip on his hand tightened. Ivisa, you can cry if you want to. No one will blame you, Perseus said. Why should I cry? Ivisa looked at him. The ones who should cry are others, all those who killed him. I want them to cry, their families to cry. Perseus paused for a moment, then said, All right, I'll go with you. Can I hug you? She asked. Perseus held her tightly without saying a word. She lowered her head, buried her face in his chest, and then hugged him tightly back. She said nothing, but her scalding tears soaked his heart. Ivia, I will go with you. Perseus gazed at the clear blue sky, his voice very soft. I know. Obedience +7. Current compliance level, 49. Chapter 1:12 Human Nature. When the carriage reached the next town, Perseus paid to buy both the carriage and the horses. Because he was unaware of the market price of these items, he offered 100 gold coins, which terrified the coachman, who thanked him profusely and agreed. He knew he might have lost a little money, but it didn't matter. He now has a lot of 100 gold coins on him. There was still nearly $1,000 left from the money Winnie gave them. The money the Dog Emperor gave Ivisa to buy clothes later became her salary when she was chosen as a concubine, leaving her with 9,000. In addition, there are 10,000 gold coins that haven't been touched at all. With a total of nearly 20,000 gold coins, he went from being penniless to becoming a small-time tycoon. After buying the horse and carriage, they gathered some food and other necessities in the town and then set off on their journey. He told the Dog Emperor that he was going home for summer vacation, so he had to go back to that home, and he was so eager to get back that he fully expressed his homesickness. After returning home, I should stay there for a few days at the latest, and then I can wander around as I please, depending on the situation. His home was in a small village below Eagle Peak in Tarkin County, in the southern part of the empire. Eagle Peak City is a major city that is well known throughout the entire Zillenria Empire. It is inhabited by a large number of magical beasts and has many ancient ruins. It is a popular destination for adventurers, many of whom come from foreign countries. Where there is popularity, there is wealth. To support these adventurers, all industries in Eagle Peak City are thriving, from food to gambling and even some indescribable erotic shops. The entire Eagle Peak City once belonged to the N.A.N family, so you can imagine how much money they control back then, even rivaling some marquee families. Unfortunately, our ancestors were disappointing, handing over that dazzling city, where even the sewers flowed with gold coins, to others. Now, Eagle Peak City has become a place of sorrow for the N.A.N family, to the point that Perseus has never even entered the city once, because his family forbids him to. His knowledge of the city's prosperity and extravagance comes only from the boasts and idle chatter of the villagers. Cities like this usually have a lot of similar urban legends. For example, many people who entered Eagle Peak City quickly turned their fortunes around and became prominent figures, rolling in money and surrounded by beautiful women. But many more people who entered Eagle Peak City were like lambs to the slaughter, devoured without a trace, vanishing into thin air as if they had never existed. What's remarkable is that these legends, though seemingly bizarre, are mostly true. It's just that the former is less common and the latter is more common. Because people also say that the sewers of Eagle Peak City not only flow with gold coins, but also with large numbers of nameless corpses. This time, Perseus is going into the city to see what's going on there. But now he needs to return to that little village that is ignored compared to Eagle Peak City. To be considerate of Ivisa's feelings, Perseus behaved himself the whole way, not only not bothering her, but also repeatedly and ruthlessly rejecting Winnie's suggestion to go into the woods together. Unsatisfied, Winnie has been in a very low mood for the past few days. Ivisa is ignoring her, which makes her so depressed that she doesn't even want to talk. Ivisa was never one to talk much, and Katie was equally taciturn. Perseus would normally be happy to flirt with so many beautiful women, but he's pretending to be honest now, preferring to look at the scenery outside the window rather than the women. In the silence, the scenery outside the window gradually became more and more familiar. He arrived at his hometown, Luke Village. Luke Village is a picturesque little village with no major flaws except for its poverty. The most luxurious building in the village is the N.A.N family's castle. There was no village here originally. It was only because one of the ancestors of the N.A.N family took a liking to the beautiful scenery of this place that, on a whim, he built this castle here and even moved some people here to grow flowers and trees for him, turning this place into a garden. Later, those flowers and trees were all cleared away and planted with crops. Later, all that remained of the N.A.N family was this village and this castle. That ancestor probably never imagined that his unintentional act would create the final resting place for his family. As soon as the unfamiliar carriage entered the village, countless adults and children craned their necks to watch in amazement as the driverless carriage slowly drove toward Earl Perron's castle. Someone tried to come up and check the situation, but Ivisa gently pushed him away with wind magic. At the moment when everyone's curiosity was at its peak, Perseus stepped out of the carriage, sat in the coachman's seat, and smiled and greeted everyone. "It's Lord Perseus!" Everyone gasped in surprise. Perseus had been in this village for over a decade, and he knew everyone in the village, young and old, young women and wives, and was quite well regarded. Upon seeing him, the villagers became excited and rushed to greet him. Perseus responded to each of them, chatting with them from time to time, his smile never fading. Before he even entered the house, his parents and brothers already knew he was back. The carriage stopped in front of the castle. His father, Talk, his mother, Gina, and his older brother, Alan, all stood at the gate looking at him with very indifferent expressions. Father, mother, elder brother. Perseus stepped down from the carriage and bowed to them. Perseus, why are you back so soon? Alan frowned, looking at the carriage behind him. Where did you get so much money to hire such a big carriage? This is a trivial matter and need not be taken seriously. How can I not care? You didn't borrow money from loan sharks just to show off, did you? Alan's face darkened. The carriage isn't mine. It belongs to a friend of mine. Perseus turned around. Professor Winnie, aren't you going to come out and see your old classmate? Alan was stunned for a moment, then turned pale with shock. Winnie stepped out of the carriage and looked at the crowd. Is it really you? Alan exclaimed in surprise. Winnie glanced at him and forced a smile. Talk and Gina immediately took a liking to Winnie because of her elegant attire and demeanor. Seeing Alan's reaction, they knew that she was the Countess Alan kept talking about. A countess from a wealthy and powerful family. Perseus, why didn't you tell me sooner that Countess Winnie was here? The Earl hurriedly straightened his clothes, fearing that he, a dignified Earl, would be looked down upon by Winnie. I was just about to introduce you, Perseus smiled, but my elder brother asked me a question, and I can't not answer it. That's right, the carriage is mine. Winnie went ahead with her performance, and her acting wasn't bad at all. There's something about her that makes her look a little smug, which is infuriating. Winnie, it's been a long time. How have you been? Alan quickly walked up to her with a big smile. Very good. Winnie couldn't really fake enthusiasm, but Alan didn't mind. She had countless suitors since childhood, and Alan was the one with the worst qualities among them. Even though she was last, she was still first, so she did have some impression of her. Back then, Alan showered her with attention despite the strange looks from others, revealing his deep affection for her, which caused her to be ridiculed by many noble ladies. Because in their view, being pursued by an unsuitable suitor is an intolerable disgrace. In their eyes, Alan was not only unqualified, he was a vermin. Unlike them, Winnie was not mean. She was polite to all her suitors, but only to a certain extent. The frustrating thing is that not all suitors are mentally sound. Some suitors, if you're polite to them, they will understand and back down, thus saving face for both sides. Some suitors, if you're polite to them, will suspect that you might also be interested in them. Alan is mentally unstable. So when she saw his ingratiating expression, Winnie couldn't help but twist her face slightly, recalling her unpleasant past as a student. Why did you come back with Perseus? Could it be? Alan said shyly. I came to Eagle Peak City on some business and happened to be seeing Perseus off. I couldn't refuse his invitation, so I've come to stay for a few days. I'm so sorry for the trouble I've caused you. I will pay for your food and lodging at the highest standard during this time. Winnie smiled. You're too kind, Talk quickly said. You're Alan's classmate and Perseus's teacher. We can't possibly treat you any way we want. Please don't think our facilities are too simple or that we're being disrespectful. Yes. Please settle in comfortably. Gina, Perseus's mother, who was always cold and indifferent to him, beamed with joy. Alan was so excited he almost fainted on the spot. He kept giving Perseus meaningful glances, seemingly thinking that Winnie was coming for him, and he was extremely smug. Perseus couldn't help but laugh. Perseus, I heard you did something incredible in the Empire. Is that true? Talk asked. Gina and Alan also looked over, their expressions unreadable. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. What do you mean by father? Perseus asked. What else could it be? I heard you bought a slave, and that slave came from... Talk's face darkened. What are you thinking? How dare you do such a thing? Yes, Perseus. You have to explain this to us clearly. Otherwise, you are no longer a member of the N.A.N family. Alan also said with a serious expression. It's just buying a slave. What's there to explain? Does this cause you or the N.A.N family any trouble? Perseus smiled. It's been so long since I bought her. Has anyone come looking for trouble? No, not at all. That's right. So, I haven't caused any trouble, and you shouldn't interrogate me like a criminal. Is this how you speak to your father? Talk's face darkened. Count Perrin, I also think that Perseus did nothing wrong. He is your child, and even if he did do something wrong, you should forgive him instead of making unfounded accusations, Winnie said. Talk paused for a moment, then said, This is for the sake of Countess Winnie. Otherwise, where's the slave you bought? Did you bring him back? Gina asked coldly. Mother, although Ivisa is indeed a slave according to imperial law, I regard her as